Live from the Pioneer PBS studios in Granite Falls, it's Meet the Candidates. This candidate forum is designed to inform you, the viewing public, about the candidates running for Minnesota state office in our region. Meet the Candidates is brought to you by the members of Pioneer PBS. This program features the candidates for Minnesota Senate District 8. And now, your moderator for tonight's program, Mark Fokin.
Hello, and welcome to Meet the Candidates. I'm Mark Fokin. This Pioneer PBS presentation is intended to inform you about the candidates who seek election or re-election to the Minnesota Legislature. This segment features candidates who are on the ballot in Senate District 8. They are incumbent Republican Senator Bill Ingebretson and his challenger DFL candidate Michelle Anderson. First, a few words about the district and the communities in it.
Minnesota Senate District 8 consists of Otter Tail County and northeastern Douglas County. It includes the cities of Fergus Falls, Alexandria, and Perham.
If you reside in this district, your questions will be given priority for the candidates' answers. All Minnesotans, regardless of residency, are encouraged to join this conversation. Our intention is to let our viewers gain an understanding of legislative priorities. Please direct your questions via the methods listed at the bottom of the screen. Now, let's meet tonight's candidates. By a coin toss, the candidates have determined the order in which they will appear with their opening statement. We will start with DFL challenger Michelle Anderson of Fergus Falls.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning into this forum tonight. And thank you to Pioneer Public Television and to Senator Ingebretson. I'm looking forward to the conversation tonight. My name is Michelle Anderson, and I'm the DFL endorsed candidate for Senate District 8. I live in Fergus Falls with my husband Spencer and my son Ashton, who's 1.5 years old, and who is my daily reminder of how important it is that we get things right when it comes to the challenges that Minnesota is facing right now. I'm originally from Dundas, which is a tiny town in southeast Minnesota, although my family history in Otter Tail County goes back to the 1800s. So on the Anderson side of my family, they were farmers in Rothsay and small business owners. And the Austin side of my family were also farmers in the Barnesville area. A little bit more about me. I have more than 15 years of nationally recognized rural advocacy and community leadership experience. Through my work as a rural program director at Springboard for the Arts, I oversee our rural efforts in small business development for artists and creative community development. I'm active in my community. I'm the chair of the Otter Tail County Historical Society. I'm also a member of the county's long-range strategic planning committee. And my writing on rural and community economic development has been published nationally, so you might remember me from when Fergus Falls took the international stage, when a fake news article was published in a German magazine, and I wrote a rebuttal that went viral. So through those efforts, I've proven time and again that I'm a fierce advocate for the people who live here. And I also know that we have a lot of work to do in rural Minnesota to imagine and build a future that works for everyone. It's clear that these are critical skills during a time when the status quo isn't working and when we're facing multiple crises. Some of the biggest challenges we're facing is how to create an equitable and just economic recovery in the wake of COVID. To me, economic recovery means looking at the whole picture. It means connecting the dots between properly funded education and mental health support to ensure our communities are safe and healthy. It means addressing our childcare shortage in order to help meet our workforce needs. And it means making healthcare affordable so that families don't go bankrupt. As a mom of a toddler, the daughter of an Air Force veteran, and the granddaughter of farmers, I live at the intersection of many walks of life in our region. I know we have great challenges ahead, but I believe in the resilience and creativity of the people here. And I look forward to the conversation tonight and hope that you see that I will bring a fresh perspective to the state legislature. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. And now, Republican Senator incumbent Bill Ingebretson.
I've lived my whole career and raised my family in Douglas County in the Alexandria area. And I'm sorry.
Sorry. Your mic, the mic issue is your mic is okay.
Now it's working?
Now it's working.
Now we're good. All right.
Sorry, you'll have to begin again. We apologize.
I forgot what I said. Again, State Senator Bill Ingebrigtsen. My residence is Alexandria, Minnesota. I raised my family along with Marilyn, my wife, with 2 children. We have 2 children, 6 grandchildren, and believe it or not, 2 beautiful great-grandchildren. We live in Alexandria. My wife was the nurse for many years at the Douglas County Hospital, and previous to my being elected to the Senate, I was in law enforcement in Douglas County and actually served as the sheriff for the past 16 years before I ran for the Senate in 2006. Again, we lived and raised our family in Alexandria. Also, I have the privilege of living with me, my son-in-law, my wife's brother, Ron, who's a special child. He's a 61-year-old Downs boy, and I said I would say hi. So hi, Ron. He's watching tonight. Folks, I've been in the Senate for 13 years. I've been in both the leadership role as well as in the minority. I know how to work across the aisle. I have done that. If you're in the minority in whether in the House or the Senate, that is one of the things that you have to do if you're going to bring your initiatives forward for your district. Of course, my district is a beautiful one in that it has the most lakes in the state of Minnesota. Actually, I think the most lakes in the country. We enjoy well over 1,500 lakes with Douglas and Otter Tail County. Right now, I'm chairing the Environment and Natural Resources, so it's a great fit for me. I'm the finance chair of the Environmental and Natural Resources. On that committee, of course, we deal with a lot of natural resource issues, outdoor issues, hunting and fishing, restoration of projects. I also sit on the Judiciary Committee, which you can about imagine with what's been going on in Minneapolis. We've been very, very busy talking and discussing things. I also sit on the Bonding Committee, which we're going to be looking at doing, I believe, this special session coming up, as well as numerous other committees that I belong to, and again, I've enjoyed my time in the Senate and been very proud and very honored to once again go back to St. Paul next year.
Thank you, Bill. We appreciate your patience as we deal with a few gremlins in our microphones, but we did a nice job and recovered from that well. Before we start with the questions, just a quick reminder to the viewers at home that you can learn how to register to vote in Minnesota and find your voting location on the Minnesota Secretary of State's website. You'll find that at mnvotes.org. Now, let's get started. As a reminder, the rules are that each question will be asked to both candidates. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. Both candidates will also have the opportunity for a 1-minute rebuttal if they so choose. We will alternate which candidate gets asked each question first. And now, our first question goes to DFL challenger Michelle Anderson, and it comes to us from a viewer in Battle Lake. How would you describe the state's response to COVID-19, rather the COVID-19 pandemic, and what legislative actions would you like to see going forward?
Yes, it has been an incredibly challenging time. I'm grateful for the leadership of the Minnesota Department of Health, for all of our essential workers, and I'm grateful for the governor who was put in a tough position early on. We did not know a lot about what we could expect, how COVID spread. There's still a lot we need to learn. I think there are some things that could have been done differently. I think rural Minnesota maybe didn't have to shut down at the same time as the rest of the state, but hindsight is always 20/20. I think moving forward, we need to continue to follow guidelines, and I think that is the best way to get our economy back up and running. I know that Minnesota's doing a lot lot better than other states right now as far as spread. However, we have seen big spikes in spread, even just in Douglas County over the last couple of weeks as a result of school starting and family gatherings. I think the peacetime emergency has been important to give the governor tools to act quickly, to order testing equipment and PPE. And I do think that we can start looking at ways that maybe we can look at regional guidelines for closures or mask mandates. I think that the state is going to encounter varying levels of spread as we continue through this pandemic. And so I would like to see the legislator look at how we can give counties guidelines kind of similar to how the schools have been given guidelines about distance learning and hybrid. And there's been great support going out to businesses. We need to make sure that continues to get out to the counties and the cities, and that we find ways to make sure that that money is being distributed equitably and really helping people stay afloat right now.
Thank you, Michelle. And now, Senator Ingebretson, the same question to you. How would you respond to this viewer in Battle Lake? How would you describe the state's response to COVID-19, and what legislative actions would you like to see going forward?
Well, thank you for the question, and that seems to be the big question of the day. No question about that. We certainly have an unknown virus that came to our country some months ago, and I have to be very honest. Starting out, Candidate Anderson is right. The governor had a real tough time, a real tough decision to have to make. And the legislature went along with that. We cooperated with that. We had a $1.2 billion surplus at that time, and $650 million plus was given to the governor immediately upon him requesting the Chapter 12 mandate, where he has the power to delegate the responsibilities totally by himself. I will have to say, though, that since that time, the legislature has been pretty much sitting around wondering when we were going to be able to participate in making those decisions. It was almost like we were not able to do that. We weren't able to take the message from Otter Tail and Douglas to St. Paul and give the governor our input and make the decisions that were made. And some of those decisions I know were tough decisions, but that's not to say that we couldn't have all participated. In the Senate, we've actually had now, I think, our fourth session coming up where we have voted, the Republican side of the Senate has voted, actually bipartisan with a couple of Democrats, to take away the power of the governor and relinquish it back to the legislature. And it goes to the House, it goes to the DFL House, and the DFL House doesn't even hear the bill, or they've not passed it. So right now, the governor, who claims to be we should all be one Minnesota, is strictly one person running Minnesota, and that's the governor. I think that's very misguided, and it's really unfortunate that we in the legislature haven't been able to participate in the making of the decisions.
Thank you, Bill. And now we'll return to Michelle for a 1-minute rebuttal.
I would disagree that it's one person making these decisions. Governor Walz is trying to follow the science and the experts right now, and he is making these decisions based on what they know about the danger of COVID and its spread. As we head into the winter, we have to keep taking this seriously, and my fear is that this has been so politicized that we need these guidelines because we cannot depend on people taking personal responsibility right now. It has become an issue where if you don't wear a mask, you're a Republican, and if you do, you're a Democrat. It's really unfortunate to see political games being played with our health. And I'll just end by saying that if this is also a result of a lack of national strategy, and I do wish there was a better our current administration had done a better job of helping states prepare. And so I think we need to continue to follow these guidelines.
Thank you, Michelle. And now we'll return to Bill for his rebuttal.
Thank you very much. I'd have to say that the science is something that we should all be following, depending upon, I guess, what scientist you want to talk to or what scientist wants to give their opinion. However, I will have to say that the reporting has been such that It's all doom and gloom. It's a lot of scare tactics, and I don't understand why. I don't get that. I don't understand why we don't report that a lot of people get COVID, like our president, and it lasts for 3 or 4 days. We never hear that. We never get to hear those things. We hear the doom and gloom. We also know that kids very seldom die from this. I mean, nobody should have to die from this. It's terrible to have to die and to lose your loved ones. But I think the reporting has been nothing but a scare tactic here as of late, and I think we need to put this to rest, and we need to get back to work, or our economy and our kids and our families are going to suffer a lot more than they already have.
Thank you, Bill. Our next question goes first back to you, Senator Ingebrigtsen, and it comes to us from Otter Tail County. What are the most important issues facing your district, and what will you do to address them?
Well, thank you for the question. I think my district isn't going to be alone in the I think the biggest issue that we're going to have to deal with in January in the biennial budget is going to be, of course, the finances. We had built the budget up to a $1.2 billion surplus under the, and I think the federal administration under President Trump with the tax cuts and with the tax cuts that we in the Senate had passed. Here in Minnesota, we had a great economy going. COVID came along and it just all of a sudden dropped. However, now you're seeing the stock market to start increasing and whatnot. So we have budgets that, believe it or not, in Minnesota, not too many people know this, but we have to balance our budget at the state level, whereas the federal government doesn't have to do that. That is going to be our biggest challenge by far. And what are we going to be cutting? Who's going to be, what services, what non-mandated services are going to have to be either go away totally or going to have to be set aside? Those are going to be tough decisions. However, it isn't going to be new to me. When 2011 came along, it was the first time that the Republicans ever took over the Senate. I was fortunate to be part of that history. At that time, we had a $5.4 billion deficit. We were, at that time, able to get the budget done on time. I don't think we were even called back for a special session. We were able to do it, and we did it in a responsible way. We just need to trim back some of the waste that's been going on. We've had a care program that's been stealing literally hundreds of millions of dollars from our program that could be actually could have been spent someplace else. Were folks that really actually need the help, and it's programs like that make government really feel and look stupid, quite frankly, and that has to stop. And I think we'll be able to certainly accomplish our budget, our task of getting that budget done by cleaning some of those things up.
Thank you, Bill. Ms. Anderson, the same question to you. What are the most important issues facing your district, and what will you do to address them?
Thanks for the question. I agree. How we address our budget deficit is going to be critical as we go into the next session. I want to share how I would look at that and how it relates to the priorities in the district, which I think were important before COVID and they remain important now. So to me, education is critical. It's about 70% of the state budget. And so as we look at the budget deficit, we have to make sure that we are finding other ways to make those cuts without taking away what the schools need right now as they change their lesson plans and as they need more support than ever. I also, I know that as far as our rural economy, the bonding bill is critical. I'm hoping we see it passed next week so that it can bring jobs and help us support our infrastructure needs as we go into this next year. I also know that talking to some of the city government leaders and county government leaders that they're really concerned about LGA, so that's local government aid, which keeps our property taxes low in rural Minnesota, and it also helps fund things like public safety and kind of just general services that cities and counties need to offer. So those are just a few things that I will be keeping a close eye on as we look at this budget deficit, and other things that before COVID that we still need to keep forging a path around, which is addressing our childcare shortage. making sure we have broadband border to border, and addressing our racial disparities, which I'm hoping we get to talk more about tonight.
Thank you, Michelle. Our next question goes first back to you, and it comes to us from a viewer who emailed it from Alexandria. What will you do to improve the economy in rural Minnesota?
Great. Well, that I'm glad for that question, because it's huge. I think we're in a place where we have to look at kind of reinventing our rural economy. So we also need to look at ways to support our workforce and to support businesses who are trying to hire people, but they're having difficulties. And some of those difficulties go back to what I mentioned before. I've heard countless businesses say that they've had openings in their businesses that they've had a hard time filling because of the lack of childcare. And so this is something I know the state is addressing, but I think we really need to keep a close eye on this and keep talking to childcare providers and families to address this issue as a state, and especially the unique rural challenges that come with childcare. Again, broadband. Not only is broadband essential right now for businesses, but I think that broadband could be the ticket to revitalizing our rural economy. So in the wake of COVID, one thing that I think is interesting is that more people are working from home. We're seeing more people look at places like Otter Tail County to move to, since they can do their work now anywhere they want. If we can get ahead of that and really invest more quickly in broadband, I think this could be a huge force for our rural economy. I think it could attract the people that are looking to live in places like Otter Tail County that now have that option. There's quite a bit more, but I think those two pieces are critical. I also am very interested in how we can relocalize our food systems and work with farmers in that way. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Senator Ingebretson, the same question to you. What will you do to improve the economy in rural Minnesota?
Well, thank you for that question, and it's certainly a broad area, and no question about the broadband. I've co-authored several bills now since being in the Senate to bring money to rural Minnesota for broadband. What we find out, of course, in rural Minnesota is that it always seems to be a little bit of well, I shouldn't say a little bit, a lot of competition between the rural and metro folks when it comes to finances. And I have fought vigorously for, and will continue to do, to fight for our share of the funding for Minnesota, and broadband, of course, is one of those. I did live through the era of E911 funding, where the metro area was funded immediately, because let's be fair, I guess that's where the population is. But we eventually ended up getting through that as well when I was a freshman. However, what we have to do if we're going to continue to build rural Minnesota is we have to look at regulations and over-regulations. Now, I chair the Environment Committee, where I also oversee the budget for the MPCA and the DNR, and there's some heavy-handedness that goes on in the regulations with the MPCA as well as the DNR. So we're constantly working with them to change things, to get the permits out quicker, working with industry. That is why I've gained the endorsement of the Minnesota Chamber as well as the Small Business Award Chamber here in the state of Minnesota, and as well as the Farm Bureau. Because they know what I can do. They know that I'm able to work across the aisle and get things done. And especially for rural Minnesota. I've been a rural Minnesota person my whole life. I grew up in the Red River Valley. I have no intention of ever leaving to go to the metro area for various reasons. And we live in what I've always said, a slice of heaven out here in rural Minnesota.
Thank you, Senator Ingebretson. Now we'll return to Michelle for a 1-minute rebuttal.
Yeah, I just want to mention that bonding bill again. It is so essential to jumpstart our economy, especially as we are continuing to deal with this pandemic. So I just really hope Senator Ingebrigtsen will help make that happen next week when they go back into special session.
Thank you, Michelle. Now back to Bill for a rebuttal.
Real quickly, yeah, the Senate has already had the bonding bill. Senator Senjum, the chairman of the bonding committee, has brought that bill forward. We voted on it. We sent it over to the House. That's where the holdup is the House. Of course, if you don't know, the House has to originate the structure for the bonding bill as well as the tax bill, and they're both sitting in the House right now. So I have voted for the existing bonding bill, and we do have some projects, local projects in there. But we also have I think it's interesting to inform the viewers that this is the largest amount of funding that we've had for roads and bridges in the state of Minnesota. And I'm all in favor of doing that, as well as there's a ton of money, I think $250-some million for wastewater treatment facilities, which is also real crucial. But I have voted for it already, and I certainly intend on voting for it if it comes from the House.
Thank you, Bill. Our next question goes back to you, and it comes to us from a viewer in Alexandria. The arts are a big draw for tourism and the quality of life in this district. And the viewer wants to know, what can you do to help support the arts in our district and in the legislature?
Well, thank you for that question. I will have to say, as I said in a different forum, that I was quite surprised after the 2008 Legacy Bill came out, and the folks actually, not the bill, but the constitutional amendment went to the voters, and where the money is to be spent on the environment, clean water initiatives, as well as arts and trails and the such outdoors. And it's very clear where that money goes. So there's a certain amount of money, a very large amount of money that goes out to the arts in the state of Minnesota, statewide. And I then realized how many arts folks that were in rural Minnesota. In fact, I have voted every time for the Legacy Bill. In fact, I was in control of the Legacy Bill in 2011 and 12, and had Senator Cohen, who was a nationally known senator for the arts under the Obama administration, that was part of the structure, and we worked very closely together. He's a Democrat from St. Paul, and we worked together. So I have a great appreciation for the arts, as well as the folks in rural Minnesota certainly do, and I've been recognized for that. And we'll continue to vote for those dollars to come out equally about rural Minnesota.
Thank you, Bill. And Michelle, the same question to you. The arts are a big draw for tourism and the quality of life in this district in particular. What can and would you do to help the arts in this district and in the legislature?
Thank you for the question. Yes, the arts drive tourism. They are also a huge economic driver. So we bring in $2.16 billion in economic impact on an annual basis, and that's through the Creative Minnesota study. So the arts are critical. Obviously, I work in the arts, so I already do quite a bit. I'm really glad to hear that Senator Ingebrigtsen is very supportive. Because aside from employing people, aside from driving tourism, the arts have also been a big reason that places like the Center for the Arts and the Cadets Gallery in Fergus Falls exist, and that those buildings were repurposed and brought back into the downtown life of Fergus Falls. As far as how to support the arts in rural Minnesota, I think that through my work at Springboard, I already do a lot of advocacy to make sure that the money from the Legacy Amendment, which is our money, it's taxpayer money, that it makes its way to rural Minnesota. And I've, through my work at Springboard, brought millions of dollars just to Otter Tail County through both the Legacy Amendment and through the National Endowment for the Arts. And that is money that then has a ripple effect in the community. So I would really make sure to keep that relationship with the Minnesota State Arts Board and the Regional Arts Councils going to ensure that that funding is accessible accessible to rural places, and also that it's doing what it needs to do to keep places like our anchor institutions in these downtown communities operating and thriving. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. And now we'll return to Bill for a rebuttal.
This is not a rebuttal as such. It's kind of a cute story, actually, with regards to arts. Back when the Viking Stadium was being built, the state of Minnesota, as well as the owners, were looking for money everywhere, and it was brought to our attention that there were some legislators that thought this legacy money that they didn't agree with. I guess they thought that one whole wall and one whole part of the or at least a smaller part of the Minnesota Vikings stadium would be of local Minnesota arts gallery, if you will, and they would get some funding for that. And I immediately said no. I put a stop to that, and we did not move forward. But I thought it was kind of interesting. When there's money available in St. Paul, you have to really look out, because but this particular kind of this particular funding is guarded by the Constitution. So it has to stay that way for the 25 years that the people voted to tax ourselves. So it was kind of a fun function, if you will.
And now we'll return to Michelle for a rebuttal.
I just want to add that the arts are also critical to our social infrastructure too. So I just want to give a shout out to all of the artists out there and the organizations who bring people together, especially in times when we're having trouble connecting, either because of isolation and COVID or disagreements. And so I really see that being a huge benefit to all of our communities as a way for us to understand each other and build relationships. So,
thank you, Michelle. Our next question will go first back to you, and it comes to us from a viewer in Erhard. What can Minnesota legislators do to end racial disparities and protect human rights in Minnesota?
Yes, thank you. This is a very critical question. It's something that I think our entire state is having a very important reckoning with. I think the most important thing as far as addressing racial disparities is recognizing that they exist. Unfortunately, there are people in the state that actually deny, that these racialist disparities exist and that they are impacting people of color from living, healthy lives, from having jobs, from contributing to their community. Unfortunately, I appreciate the work that Senator Ingebrigtsen does, but unfortunately, this is something I really think he needs to do a better job on. In a recent questionnaire on the League of Women Voters, he said that something to the extent that racial disparities don't exist, or that they are perceived, and that people can succeed if they are willing. I think this is a really unfortunate perspective. From early life until late life, we see racial disparities affecting everyone. So more children of color, when they're born, are more likely to die from infant conditions. More people of color are incarcerated, and as we saw this summer, and as we know, more people of color experience violence at the hands of police. And so I don't think we can do anything if we are not recognizing that this problem exists. We can't get anywhere until we all see ourselves as part of that issue and part of the solution. Just to throw out one thing, I do want to see more teachers of color in our schools. There are studies that show kids do better when their teachers are more like them. So, thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. Bill, the same question to you. What can Minnesota legislators do to end racial disparities and protect human rights in Minnesota?
Well, quite frankly, I think this country is going through some times now where I guess it's the I guess I don't know how to put it exactly, but I don't think anybody I don't think there's a educational opportunity that's been turned down for a teacher. I think a teacher has an opportunity to be, no matter what color they are. We shouldn't even be talking about this, people. We shouldn't even be discussing this. And I don't believe that there is racial discrimination going on. I absolutely don't. I did and was born and remember the 60s and how far we've come since then. When I used to see on TV rioting going on with fire trucks and hoses and dogs and horses, I mean, it was a terrible time in our history. We have come leaps and bounds since then. However, I will have to say, under the Obama administration, I think we went backwards. I really do, and it's really unfortunate. And the police now are being blamed for one or two individuals from a specific community because of their color. We don't blame that one person for their whole community. If that community is not, raising their children in the proper fashion, that's not a policeman's issue. They're going to be called in there if there's crime, and if there's crime there, the people in those communities, like we do out here, we have to take care of one another. We have to take care of our communities. So the police don't have to be called in there. And yes, unfortunate things are going to happen. There is going to be some shootings. And that's really unfortunate. But to sit here and tell and lie to people and say that we are in a horrible racist situation in this country, I'd have to ask, how did Obama get to where he is? How did these professional sports ever get to where they are? There's nobody standing in the way of anything in this country.
Thank you, Bill. And now we'll return to Michelle for a rebuttal.
I'm just surprised to hear that. There is, you need to look at the data, Senator Ingebrigtsen, because Minnesota has the worst disparities in the nation. I could list a bunch off, but just right now in Minnesota, let's look at this. 7.5% of Minnesota's white workforce was claiming unemployment benefits compared to 20% of Minnesota's black workforce and 18% of the indigenous workforce. There is more discrimination in housing, in jobs and hiring. And if we don't address this now, and if we don't find ways to solve this problem and actually admit that it's a problem, rural Minnesota is also not going to be in a good place. Our people of color and indigenous population is expected to increase by up to 50% by 2035. This is a statewide responsibility, and the first step is to admit that it's real.
And now we'll return to Bill for a rebuttal.
Thank you for that. And folks, there's nobody stopping anybody from getting a job in the state of Minnesota. I see wherever I go, I mean, we are the land of opportunity. There's jobs all over the place. And anybody that gets turned down because of their color or their race or their sex, we have laws in place for that. We've had laws in place for that for years. Discrimination laws. We fund a huge department in the state of Minnesota to deal with that very issue. I don't fall for that. I'm not going to fall for the idea that because you're of a different color or you're of a different sex, that you can't bring yourself, get yourself a decent job in the state of Minnesota. We've dealt with equal pay for women and men at the governmental level. When I was sheriff, we did that. If you work alongside of a deputy and you're a white or black or female, it doesn't matter. You get paid the same. So it's just not there. It's just not there.
Thank you, Bill. Our next question first goes back to you, and it comes to us from a viewer in Otter Tail County. A tragic domestic violence incident took place in Fergus Falls before Christmas 2 years ago, the result of gun violence. What approaches would you take to end violence against women?
Well, thank you for the question. It's a very important question. And as a sheriff, you can imagine, I lived it, I seen it. I had to deal with the residue, or if you will, or the results of domestic abuse, and it's a horrible thing, and it has to be stopped. And I've When I was sheriff, I worked on the safe house that's in Alexandria now. I've been on a ton of committees, if you will, with regards to domestic abuse, and always participated in the functions with regards to fundraising for the organization there in Alexandria, as well as in Otter Tail County. That has to stop. We have to do whatever we can for domestic abuse, because if we don't, it just goes on from one generation to another. And how I qualify that is that when I was a young deputy sheriff, I incarcerated people. And when I got older in my career, I started incarcerating the parents of they were actually turning into parents and pretty soon grandparents of the same family. So that has to stop. And as a community, we can do that. We can call in things that we see that are red flags, if you will. We can use a red flag there. Call in and report things. Domestic violence is horrible, and sometimes it results in death. And yes, there are some times with guns, with knives, bludgeoned with baseball bats, whatever the choice of weapon. It's really unfortunate when it goes that far, and it's very gut-wrenching for a community.
Thank you, Bill. And Michelle, the same question to you. A tragic domestic violence incident took place in Fergus Falls before Christmas 2 years ago, the result of gun violence. What approaches would you take to end violence against women?
Yes, I know women who do not feel safe. And I think the most important thing is to talk to women in those situations and really find out what are the barriers for them getting help. I know that sometimes restraining orders aren't even enough, and often, even if someone does feel like a threat, it's not until they actually do something that there can be any law enforcement intervention. So that I think is very concerning, especially if you know that somebody that wants to harm you has a gun or is trying to purchase a gun. So I think this does relate a bit to gun safety measures. I think there are things we need to look into as far as passing some extreme risk laws that allow somebody to report, as Ingebrigtsen used the word red flag, so they're also known as red flag laws, that allow somebody to report if someone seems like a threat or a risk and they have guns. There might be a need to intervene there. I do understand that there are pros and cons to that law as well, and so I think we, as a state, domestic violence, suicide, we need to gather people and stakeholders around domestic violence, around mental health, and include gun owners to determine what we can do to mitigate the gun violence that is so prevalent and just really destroys lives and also, frankly, has a lot of people living in fear.
Thank you, Michelle. Our next question goes first back to you. What is your stance on right to work? So I do not support the right to work bills if they were to be proposed at the state. I'm pro-union, and I'm endorsed by several union organizations. And the right to work is sort of a misleading name, so it actually undermines and weakens union contracts and makes it harder to negotiate better wages and better benefits. There's actually, a lot of good data out there that shows that right-to-work states, their wages are lower, their quality of life is lower, and so I do not support a right-to-work bill if it were to be proposed. Thank you, Michelle. And Senator Ingebrigtsen, the same question to you. What is your stance on right to work?
Thank you for that question. That's a very, very interesting topic. It was some years ago when actually it was brought forward. It was discussed in, I believe, both caucuses, Democrat and Republican, about putting that on the Constitution as a constitutional amendment. First of all, constitutional amendments are very important. They shouldn't be dealt with lightly. And if you're going to have a constitutional amendment on the ballot, you should know, or at least you should feel that the public knows exactly what you're talking about. So candidate Anderson is correct. It's not a very clear and concise statement when you talk about right to work. People just simply don't understand, why would you be against the right to work? But it is a union issue. It's something that I voted actually against it as a Republican, and not so much that I disagreed with it, but I also just didn't think it needed to go on the ballot, because I don't think people would have understood it. And I'm very, very animate about putting anything on the ballot unless they understand what it is. And it was not clear, it was not around long enough at that time, and it's kind of fallen on the wayside right now. I also have endorsements from private unions, the International Union of Operator Engineers. I have the Pipe Fitters Union supporting me, that are actually endorsing me. So I, along with the Minnesota Peace and Police Officers Association. So I know about unions. I actually, back in the 70s, I was part of forming a union in my law enforcement profession in Douglas County, because at that time there was a need for that. There was a need for it. And unions to this day are still there. They're prevalent. There's a call for them, but nevertheless, that right to work legislation did not go anywhere because simply people didn't understand it.
Thank you, Bill. Unfortunately, we don't have any further time for questions. So as we conclude the debate, each candidate will offer a 2-minute closing statement. And first, we will start with incumbent Senator Bill Ingebretson.
Well, again, thank you very much to Pioneer Public TV, as well as the viewers that are taking the time out of their busy lives to do what they have to do, I think, in order to become educated as far as getting out to vote on November 3rd. Folks, it's been a true honor to be representing the District 8, which is Otter Tail and parts of Douglas County, over the past years. I've always said that if you don't listen to the people that actually put you in St. Paul, if you're not willing to carry that message to St. Paul, then it's time to go home. I carried myself that way when I was sheriff, when I was elected 4 different times. 3 times I ran unopposed. Those things are because of I think the public's trust. The public knows me. They know they can approach me. I've always had an open door policy in the Senate, as well as I did when I was in my previous life, and I'm going to continue to do that. If you give me the opportunity to allow me to be your senator, I will continue to work for rural Minnesota, specifically rural District number 8, and I will do what it takes. If working across the aisle, there will be times that I know that people think that we do get into a lot of rancor in St. Paul. There are times when we pass as many as 60, 70 bills a day in a bipartisan fashion. But again, that doesn't make the media because it's not really newsworthy, at least in their view. But there are real differences between Republicans and Democrats, and it's always been that way. And I've always been able to understand that if you have to fight for your values and fight for the majority of the people that you represent, and I feel they're conservative, common sense people in Minnesota, I'll continue to do that if you allow me. And thank you very much for tonight.
Thank you, Senator Ingebretson. And now a closing statement from the DFL challenger, Ms. Michelle Anderson.
Thank you so much to everyone who watched this forum tonight. Above all else, I hope you've made a plan to vote and have your voice heard in this very important election. I voted with my son this morning. It was safe, it felt secure, and it was really powerful to think of what this election means for his generation. And there's a lot of things that our state is facing right now, but I'm very hopeful that as a state, we can look back at this time and say that we came together, took care of each other, and build something better than what we had before. I know that this will be my goal if I'm elected. Minnesota is called the North Star State, and we've been a North Star for this country for many things like conservation and healthcare. I'd like to see Minnesota position itself as a North Star for the issues that our nation is facing right now, like COVID response, racial equity, climate change, broadband. We have a choice right now. We don't have to be a microcosm of the division that is happening at the national level. Let's chart a course together. And aside from trying to bridge the divides that are keeping us in gridlock as a state, I want to reiterate a few things, a few reasons why you should vote for me. I will support our schools. They are our community anchors. I will help address healthcare and particularly mental health and addiction. I will make sure we protect our environment. I will be a champion of growing a new rural economy. And I will address our racial disparities because I believe that Black lives matter. And it is a statewide responsibility to come to terms with the fact that we have not done enough to repair the harms and inequities caused by generations of racism and trauma. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen tonight. It's an honor to have the chance to be a candidate during this critical year, and it will be an honor to serve you. Please vote for Michelle Anderson for State Senate and visit my website, michelleformn.com, to learn more. Thank you and take care.
Thanks, Michelle. That concludes our program. Thanks to both candidates for joining us, and a special thanks to our viewers who sent along their questions. To watch this and other Meet the Candidates episodes, past or present, visit video.pioneer.org or use the free PBS video app. Just choose Pioneer PBS as your local station. Thank you for joining us on Meet the Candidates.